नमामि शंकराचार्य गुरुपाद सरोरुहम् यस्य प्रसादान् मूढोऽपि सर्वज्ञोः सदा भवम् कामाक्षी करुणारूपं कामकोटि जगद्गुरुं चिन्मूर्तिं कलये चित्ते शंकराचार्यमव्ययम् भक्ताग्रगिरिसम्भूता शंकरार्णवगामिनी पुनातु भुवनं पुण्या श्रीगुरोश्चरितापगा वेद साम्राज्य धर्म कामार्थ मोक्षदम् विद्यारण्यं नुमः पुण्यं जो विद्यारण्यमध्यनत् सदाशिव श्री ब्रह्मेन्द्र धृत स्वपद पादुकान् धीरान् परशिवेन्द्रार्यान् ध्यायामि सततं हृदि देवे देहे च देशे च भक्त्यारोग्य सुखप्रदं बूढ़पामर सेव्यन्तं श्री जयेन्द्रं नमाम्यहम् नमामि शंकरान् वाक्य विजयेन्द्र सरस्वती श्री गुरुं शिष्टमार्गानुनेतारं सन्मतिप्रदं सत्यनारायण क्षेत्रात् सत्यव्रतम् उपागतम् आश्रये कामकोटीशं सत्यश्री चंद्रशेखरं सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परा. Shri Shankara Bhagavatpāda Acharya's 2500th Aradhana was performed last year, and after that, our Shri Kanchi Kamakoti Moolamnaya Sarvagya Peethadipati Jagadguru Shri Shankara Vijayam Saraswati Shankaracharya Swamigal performed Abhisheka to Ramanatha Swami at Rameshwaram by his own hands, and thereby completed his Tirtha Yatra. And starting from that auspicious occasion, with the prarthana of doing Anusandhanam of all the original Shankara Vijaya texts, we have embarked upon this prayatna. And right now we are examining the Anandagiriya Shankara Vijaya, which was composed by one Anandagiriya, a direct disciple of Shri Bhagavatpāda. In the previous session, the 38th session, we examined the 63rd prakarana, up to that prakarana, in which Bhagavatpāda came to Kanchipuram, and there he caused the then king of that area, one Rajasena Chola, to undertake renovation of the temples and house dwellings in Shiva Kanchi and Vishnu Kanchi. And after that, with lots of scholars who are in Kanchipuram itself, because that itself is a great Vidyasthanam, and from various parts of Bharat, and especially from the Tamraparni Tira, Bhagavatpāda debated and established his Sarvagyatva. So that is what was said in the previous prakarana. And now after that, because as Apaya Dikshara says, he calls Shiva, Vishnu and Ambika as the Ratnatrayam, the three main forms of Paramatma to be worshipped. And among them, Shiva is in the name of Rudrakoti at Ekamareshwara temple, and Mahavishnu's Varadaraja temple, the Vimana, is called Punyakoti, and the third is Kamakoti, which is Bhagavati Kamakshi, and she is called that because she gives Koti Kamanas, the Dharmika Kamanas of her devotees, she grants them. And she also grants what is beyond in the Koti of Kama. That is when we have the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha. What is beyond Kama, that is Moksha. Even that Purushartha she grants. That is why she is called Kama Koti. And now the Mahatmya of that Kamakshi Devi is established in this Prakarana. Tadarantaram Shri Kamakshi Prapanchas Chintyate Sadhu Sankhya Nasya Munehe Avirbhuta Kila Upasanaya Bhagavati Chitrupini Brahma Vidya Rudra Shakti. So the name of the sage is found with slight Pathabhedas in other texts. Here it is given as Sankhyayana, and because of his worship, Bhagavati is said to have been born to him as a daughter to him, and but she is actually the Shuddha Chaitanya Rupini and the Brahma Vidya Swarupini, and this will also be clarified presently. And she is the Shakti of Parameshwara. Idanimapi Guhavasini Bhutva Vartate. Even now, she is there in the Guha, that Bilakasha, which is the Murti of Kamakshi, which we can see today in Kanchipuram. Below that, the Bilakasha is said to be present, and that is the Moola Sanidhya of the Devi. But the thing is that it is not possible for devotees to easily worship that Akasha Swarupa. So Nija Mahima Prakatanartham Aneka Vaibhavanya Anubhavanti, and all her various Vaibhavas they have to be manifest. Only then people can worship her. So, tasyaha parameshwaryaha bimba pratishtham karayami. So, Bhagavati, she herself had the sankalpa that various forms of pratishtha should be done in that particular place so that people can easily worship her. Shri Kamakshi pratistham achakara. And in other texts, it is said that Durvasa Maharshi did the pratishtha of that murti which is present there. And here it will be shortly described how Bhagavatpāda installed the Shri Chakram. And but anyway, that Mola Sannidhi of the Kamakshi, Sapi Upasakanam Phalada Kalpavalliva Samabhavat. So she is like the Kalpalata, which grants all that her devotees pray for. And Ataha Vidyarupaya Taya Saha Yuktaha Parameshwaro Mokshada iti Kritva Veda Vedanta Sahasravadaha Swarupa Bhajat. And that is why the Vedas and the Vedantas, thousands of such quotations are there which say that along with that Brahmavidya Swarupini Ambika, Parameshwara is to be worshipped and he will grant moksha. So what is such a, for example, such a passage is given from the Kaivalya Upanishad, which mentions Sumasahayam Parameshwaram Dhyatva Munirgachari Tapasah Parastat. So once somebody who meditates upon the Sambhava Parameshwara, the Parameshwara who is along with Uma Devi, he will go beyond darkness. That is what is said here. And who is that Uma? Uma is none other than the Brahmavidya Swarupini, and that is given in the Keno Upanishad as Bahushobhamana Uma Haimavati. So there is no doubt about that. Brahmavidya Swarupini is the Uma, and she is Kamakshi here. Saiva Muktida iti Niravadyam Yadevi Sarvabhuteshu Jnana Rupena Samsthita Namastasye 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 Namo Nama iti Markandeya Purana Sadbhava cha Tasmat Paradevata Kamakshi iti Tatprapancha Vibhavaha. So it is very clear that Kamakshi is none other than the Paradevata. So thus ends the very short 64th Prakarana. And in the next Prakarana, the Shri Chakra Pratishtha is described. Once this particular topic has been proven, Parasaktittvasya Abhivyanjakam Shri Chakra Nirmanam Kriyate Bhagavatbhiracharyihi. Now we will describe how Bhagavatpāda installed that Shri Chakra, which brings out that Parashakti, and that Shri Chakra which has been described in the Tantra Shastras and other Granthas as Vidyut Trikona and so on. That Shri Chakra was installed as Bhagavan Bhagavatpāda Shri Chakram Swayamalikhat. As it is said in other texts, Sarvesham Darshanadeva Moksha Phalaprapte Shri Chakram Prabhavati. He is also said that by the very darshana of the Shri Chakram one can attain moksha. Iti Bhagavatbhiracharyi is tatra nirmitam tasmat muktikankshibhi sarvaihi Shri Chakra puja kartavya. So the Shri Chakra, that Shri Chakram which has been installed there in that Sannidhi of Kamakshi, that is Bhagavatpāda also refers to this Shri Chakram which he installed in his Lalita Trishati Bhashya, because that is a Shakti Peetham since time immemorial. But when in the Vyakhyana of the word Kamakoti Nilaya, Bhagavatpāda refers to that Peetham, and he also refers to the Shri Chakra which has been installed there. Tasmat Mukti Kangshivi. So along with this, the puja of this particular Shri Chakra in the Sannidhi of Kamakshi, Bhagavatpāda wish that a puja should be done along with the Samba, as earlier it was mentioned, Samba Parameshwara, and the Parameshwara has himself given the Spatika Linga to be worshipped, and that Yoga Linga Chandramaulishwara is to be worshipped. That is what Bhagavatpāda took Sankalpa along with Bhagavati in the form of Shri Chakra Meru. Tatraiva, in that same Kanchipura Kshetra, Nija Avasa Yogyam Mathamapi Parikalpya Tatra Nija Siddhanta Paddhatim Advaitam Prakashayitum. So Bhagavatpāda created a matha for his own staying there in Kanchipuram, and he wanted his Siddhanta of Advaita to be spread there. That is what the Shri Chakra which was Pratishtha which was done. It is also mentioned in Bhagavatpāda's Namavali Shri Chakra Kancham Shri Chakra Rajakhe Yantrasthapana Dikshitaha. And along with that, this Shri Chakra is also worshipped in this matha along with Chandramaulishwara, just like it was said in the Shiva Rahasyam. Bhagavatpāda called his Shishya Antevasanam Sureshwaram Ahuja Yoganamakam Lingam Pujaya iti Tasmai Dattva Tvamatra Kamakotipitham Madhivasayati Vyavasthapya. Bhagavatpada instructed Sureshwaracharya, you worship this Yogalinga, and what was not explicitly mentioned in this text but is known from other texts is that that boy of less than 7 years by name Mahadeva, who debated with Bhagavatpada and to whom Bhagavatpada granted sannyasa at the occasion of that Sarvagyatva Pratisthapana, and that boy by name of Sarvagyatma, though he is of very small young age, and Bhagavatpada instructed Sureshwaracharya, even though Sureshwaracharya was a guide for the other Peethams also, but especially since this Bhagavatpada wanted this Sarvagyatma to be the next Peethadipati, the Pratyeka Peethadipati, the first Pratyeka Peethadipati of this Kamakoti Peetham, because Bhagavatpada is common to everybody, and then Sureshwaracharya also, Bhagavatpada wished Sureshwaracharya to take special care of this Sarvagyatma, and Bhagavatpada gave this Yogalinga to Sureshwaracharya. You do puja of the Shivalinga, and arranged so that this puja of Shiva Chandramolishwara Yogalingeshwara along with Mahatribhara Sundari in the form of the Shri Chakra should continue in this Shishya Parampara. Iti Vyavasthapya Shishya Janehi Paribhojyamanaha Shri Paramaguru Sukhamasa. So with all Shishyas worshipping him, Shri Paramaguru was there pleasantly in the Kamakoti Peetham, in the Acharya Peetham, in that Matham which he created for his own. Iti Prakaranam Panchashashtikam thus ends the 65th Prakaranam, and then it is described how the Shishyas are praying to Bhagavatpada to teach them the Moksha Marga. Kadachit Shishyaha, so the next 66th Prakarana, Kadachit Shishyaha Anandagiri Pramukhaha. So Anandagiri Swami, the author himself, says that I also was there. Not only that, he was the one who initiated the question, Anandagiri Pramukhaha Paramagurunnatva Idamochuhu. They went and did Namaskara to Bhagavatpada and asked him, Swamin Mokshamarga Lakshanam Bada. Please tell us what is the Mokshamarga. Paramaguruho Shishye Prarthita San Mokshamarga Lakshanam Bhaktum Upakramam Achakara. By this prayer of the devotees, the Shishyas, Bhagavatpada started to describe the Mokshamarga. So Bhagavatpada first he clarifies the two samsara gatis. That is something that was mentioned in the earlier Prakarana also, the Uttarayana Marga. Here Bhagavatpada quotes from Bhagavan's Gita. Bhagavad Gita su Agnar Jyotir Ahas Shuklaha Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayaragachanti Brahma Vidojanaha. Iti Archiradi Marga Uchade. This is called the Archiradi Marga. First, the Jiva, he is taken to the Parabrahma, to the Brahma Loka. Parabrahma is in the form of a Saguna Swarupa, a form that is fit to be worshipped in that particular Loka. That is why it is called Brahma Loka. But each Upasaka, whatever form he wishes, whether he is devoted to Shiva form or Vishnu form, accordingly it will be that Brahmaloka will be visible in the form of Kailasa, Vaikuntha and so on. This is what was said earlier itself. So to that Loka, Brahma Loka, this Agni Devata, Jyotir Devata, the Devata of light, and Ahar Devata, the Devata of the daytime, the Devata of the Shukla Paksha, Devata of the Uttarayana time period. It is not the time period which is important, but the Devata. And these Devatas, they take him there. So again, there is a debate, discussion, whether this Kala is what is intended or whatever, what else. So in that Adhikaranam of the Brahma Sutra, Vyasacharya has composed Ativahika Stallinga. Vyasacharya establishes that these are the Devatas who take him. The Sayanan Brahma Gamayati, that Devata takes this Sadhaka who has risen to such a high exalted place of Paripakvata, that he does not need to come back, be born again in this world. So that particular Jiva is taken to the Brahmaloka. And this is the Uttarayana Marga. And likewise, there is also the Dakshinayana Marga, which again Bhagavan himself says, Dhumo Ratris Tatha Krishnaha Shanmasa Dakshinayanam Tatra Chandrama Sanjyotihi Yogi Prapya Nivartate. So this the person who goes in the Uttarayana Marga and attains the Brahmaloka, it is said that he goes via the Surya Mandala. And here in the other Dakshinayana Marga, the path is that in the place of the Agni, fire, there is the Devata of the smoke, Dhuma. And in the place of daytime, you have the Ratri, Devata of Ratri. In the place of Shukla Paksha, you have the Devata of Krishna Paksha. In the place of Uttarayana, you have the Devata of Dakshinayana. So these Devatas take him to the Chandraloka, and from that he is born back again as per his Purva Karmas. Whether he might have performed lots of punyas, in which case he will experience Swarga or other such lokas, lots of pleasures he will experience there, and once his remaining punya is no longer sufficient, he will fall back to the Bhuloka. Or if he has committed lot more papas, then he will go to the Narakaloka, and there he will experience the difficulties, sufferings because of that papam, and he will come back here. So this is the twofold samsara gati. Either after this Manusha Sharira, one based on his Paribhakvata, either he permanently goes to that Brahmaloka and from that he attains moksha later on. But if he has not attained such a Paribhakvata, he will be born again here in this Bhuloka after experiencing various other lokas. But whoever has absolutely attained the realization that Sarvam Brahmabhayam, he is one with the Brahman, he will not go anywhere, he will hear itself, he will merge with that Brahman. This is the thing that is to be attained. But how it is to be attained? So for that Veda Buddhi, the Veda Drishti, the thinking that there is duality, there are differences in this world, that thinking has to go. So how will it go? So Bhagavatpāda encourages the Shishyas to think about it. See, lots of things appear. So these differences in this world, they appear. But are they real? So you see a rope and you think a snake appears there, but the snake is not real. Likewise, Bhagavatpāda encourages his Shishyas, think. You see these, you see a book here, you see a table here, the book is on the table and the book is different from the table. So you see that there is Veda. But consider whether this Veda, the difference, is that difference part of the book? Is it part of the table? Or is it something else? Bhagavatpāda says, idam asmad bhinnamiti pratiyamano bhedaha dharmiswarupa vasyat tad dharmo va anatavat dharmiswarupa matram idam asmad bhinnam. So because we say that this is different from that. So you have three different words talking about three different concepts. So we cannot say that the difference is part of the book or it is part of the table. So one might think that because of this, one should actually say that the difference is separate from both. So there is a very, very long and very intricate technical discussion here. I am not going into that discussion. That is highly technical. But Bhagavatpāda then speaks about, you consider, if you say that the difference is separate from the Vastu, you cannot say that it is part of the Vastu, so it is separate from the Vastu, then what is going to connect that difference to the Vastu which is different? So because if you keep thinking like this, you cannot prove that there is something else connecting these two. And if you say that there is something else connecting, then again a similar question will come there. What connects the connection and so on. So because of this, you cannot properly prove that this difference exists. It appears, no doubt, but you cannot say that it really exists. You cannot establish that it really exists. Ataha nato bhedaha paramarthikaha itukta shishyaha punarucho. So Bhagavatpāda says that you cannot prove this, that bheda exists. Then the Shishyas say, okay, you are saying you are talking based on experience, pratyaksha and anumana, inference. But there are Shruti Vakyas which talk about bheda, difference. So for example, there is the Shruti, the mantra, Upanishad mantra, which says Dvasuparna Sayuda Sakhaya. So it talks about two birds which are there on a tree. And of those two birds, one bird eats the fruit of the tree, and the other bird does not eat, and it is just looking on as a sakshi. Ityatra jiva brahma bhedasya nishtayat katham abheda siddhantah iti vaktamuchitam. So this, the Shishya say, so look, this Veda mantra talks about jiva being different from Ishvara. So jiva is the bird which eats the fruit. That is, it eats, it experiences various sukha dukkha's. That is what is intended by that rupaka. And Ishvara, he does not descend into experiencing the sukha dukkha's of the world. So he is a sakshi. So this has to be the meaning of this mantra. So because of this, we say that Veda is Satya. So here Bhagavatpāda clarifies, see, yes, this is also a Veda Vakya. But earlier also we have shown very many Veda Vakyas are there which talk about Abheda, which says that Veda is not true. Which say that only if you attain the Abheda Jnana, you will attain Amrita, you will attain nectar. But no such Veda Vakyas are there which give a phala for accepting that Dvaita is Satya. Yes, Dvaita is mentioned, but as mentioned in the previous prakarana also, previous session also, Dvaita is something that we experience. So based on our already existing experience, it is an experience. Whether it is true or not is a different question, as we said just now. So based on that experience, such passages are there, such passages do exist. So, but we have to consider that it is those Veda Vakyas which talk about Abheda which actually give a phala for the Abheda Jnana and not for the Bheda Jnana. So we have to give importance to the Vakyas which are talking about Abheda, and because of that we have to say that this particular verse which is describing two birds, it does not and it cannot talk about Jiva and Ishvara. So what else can it talk about? So let us read this. तस्मात् भेद एव इत्यत्र जीव ब्रह्म भेदस्य निश्चयात् कथम अभेद सिद्धान्ते इति वक्तुमुचितम् तस्मात् भेद एव अंगीकर्तव्य इति प्राप्ते परमगुरुभिः एवम् उच्यते. So based on the Shruti Vakya, the Shishyas propose that Veda has to be accepted. Then Bhagavatpāda replies, no, this Shruti Vakya is not about the Jiva Parabheda. So it is not about the difference between the Jiva and Ishvara. Kintu Buddhi Kshetragya Bheda. So it is talking about the difference between the Kshetragya and Buddhi. So what is Kshetragya? First of all, what is Kshetra? Bhagavan says in the Gita, Idam Shariram Kaunteya Kshetramitya. So not just Shariram is obviously so many Shariras are there. So those Shariras are Kshetras. But Bhagavan says, Kshetrajnanchapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. Understand that I am the single Kshetrajna, the observer of all these kshetras. So Bhagavan very clearly says that he is the single kshetrajna, no matter how many kshetras, no matter how many shariras are there. So that kshetrajna is present in this body also. And there is a buddhi in this body, and that buddhi, it is that buddhi which is involving itself in all the prapancha vyavaharas. So when this kshetrajna enters into abhimana with this buddhi, he feels this, he identifies himself with that buddhi, then whatever the sukha dukkha's that buddhi experiences, that the kshetrajna feels that he is experiencing, then he is called jiva. But there is no separate jiva. It is the same kshetrajna, the single kshetrajna, which is present in all the bodies, in all the kshetras, that is taking up the form of the jiva in that particular sharira. So, because the single body, physical body, the buddhi is there and the kshetrajna is there, and it is these two which are referred to as the two birds. Buddhi koshe kshetrajnasya pratibharanam jiva iti prasidhya jiva kshetrajnayoho sarvatha abhedeyo. So, it is that single kshetrajna who is reflected in that particular buddhi, and he is called as jiva. So, it is just like if you have multiple ghatas, multiple pots of water, and the single sun is getting reflected into all these pots. So there is still only one sun, not so many suns have been newly formed. There is a single sun is appearing as many in these various pots. So we do not say that because of this multiple suns have formed. So Surya Sajala Ghateshu Surya Bimba Pradibhala Surya Pradibimba Bhalanamiva. So that Surya Bimba is Pradibhalita in all these kshetras, on all these ghatas, on these spots, and Darpananta Pradibimbita Mukhamiva. So you have a mirror, you see that this face is getting reflected in that mirror. We don't say that a new face has formed. There is this only single face which is on top of this neck. There is not a face inside the mirror. So is either the same face which is appearing inside the mirror additionally. Tarbadanta Pradibimbita Mukhapiva Bhidal Gandhalesha Rahite. So there is not even the small least hint, the least smell, even the smell of Bheda. So there is Abheda is true. Jiva Shabdavache Kshetrajne. So it is the same Kshetrajna which is called by the name of Jiva. Darpana Malinyan Mukhamalinyamiva. So if suppose that mirror is dirty, so we come to think, we think, oh, is my face dirty? So we go and clean it. If we clean it, and by cleaning, if that dirt disappears, then it means that the dirt is there in the mirror. It is not there in the face. If it doesn't disappear, then it is there in the face. So likewise, if you have that those pots, if suppose the pots are shaken, and so the water inside the pots is also shaking. So the water shakes, then the Surya Pradibimbas will also shake. It doesn't mean the Surya is shaking. So Karma Bhalanya Anubhavataha Kshetrajnasya Pratibimbitasya Bhidakalpaniya. So there is no necessity that because that Jiva, that Buddhi, it is doing lots of karmas and experiencing that phalas, but the single Kshetrajna is being reflected into all these buddhis. There is no necessity for imagining that there is difference among there are many Kshetrajnas. Tena Bahubuddhikoshe Pratibhalanena na Kshetrajna Bahulyam Uchitam Bhaktum Katatarpada Bahulyevi Sugurya Mukhajoho Ekatvam Yata Tadvat Abheda Eva Siddhantaha. So this is, we have explained this already. So Abheda is the truth. So it was also already mentioned that it is the single Paramatma who has created the world and also himself entered in the form of a Jiva. So that same Paramatma is described variously by the words Sakshi, Nitya, Kshetrajna, Paramatma, Sat, Brahma, and all these words. Tasmad Advaitameva Siddhantaha Dvaitantu Maya Kalpitam Moha Karanam. So Advaita is the final truth, and Dvaita is only illusory. It is created by Maya, and it is the cause of misunderstanding, Moha, and thereby it is the cause of Janma Marana Prabaha Agadha Jalam. So it is the cause of this very deep water flow, Prabaha, of Janana and Marana, birth and death. So this is the Siddhanta. It is Siddhanto Vyasamata Siddha. This is the Siddhanta of Vyasacharya. That is how it Bhagavatpāda insists in front of, he teaches Shishyas, and Bhagavatpāda says, so if you want to rid yourself of the two kinds of that samsara gati, so you have to realize that that single Paramatma is, you are that Paramatma. So tasmad yujam. So how to realize that? Yujam sthula sharirasya sukshme layam samyak vidhaya. So you have to merge that sthula sharira. How to dissolve the sthula physical sharira? It is not dissolving in the sense that you realize that this is also our external appearance. So you are not this sthula sharira, and you are instead, first, as the first step, you realize that you are the sukshma sharira. And then that sukshma sharira, you are inside this physical body, and then you realize that beyond that sukshma sharira, go to the karana sharira, which is that the core of the antahkarana. Manomatre karane antardhanam kritva manasopi vishwakarane angushtamatre vilinatam sampadya. So even beyond that mind, you realize that the mind is also, you dissolve that into that single Paramatma who is present within the Hridaya Guha. He is the cause of everything, but he is of the size of a thumb. Angushtamatra Purushe Vilinatam Sampatya, and that Paramatma within the Hridaya Guha, he is actually just a manifestation of the Aparichinnam Brahma, the Tadupari Aparichinnam Brahma Bhutva Mukta Bhavata, the limitless Parabrahman Supreme Being, that is your real form. Once you realize that, you will become that Mukta Bhavata. Bhagavatpāda blesses them that you will become Mukta. And just like it is, just like in earlier Prakaranas where Bhagavatpāda blesses this Anugraha to the Shishyas, Deva Muktaha Sarva Shishyaha Paramaguru Pada. So there is a very interesting, important point here. So all these Shishyas, they Kritarthaha, Vidita Brahmanaha, Jivan Mukta Babuhu, they attained whatever needed to be attained. They realized that Brahmavastu and they became Jivan Muktas. Yes, along with this Paramaguru Padadvaya Sakta Shirshaha, they always kept their feet on the, their heads on the feet or divine feet of the Guru. So this is just like the Sadashiva Brahmendra, even though he may declare Sarvam Brahmamayam and he may be at the supreme level of experiencing oneness with everything, but that same Sadashiva Brahmendra keeps saying Shri Guru Paramashivendra Anugraha and so on. So that is such is the greatness of Guru Bhakti, and thus this 66th Prakarana ends where Bhagavatpāda speaks about the Moksha Marga in the Kanchipura Kshetra. And from the next Prakarana onwards, we see the Shanmata Sthapana of Bhagavatpāda, and by the grace of the Guru, let us examine it in further upcoming sessions. Sarva Vyapaka Chaitanya Rupena Adhyapi Tishtadi Sayeva Shankaracharyo Gurur Mukti Pradasatam. Hara Hara Shankara, Jaya Jaya Shankara.